Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. We're doing a live YouTube postgame show, our second of the week. This is also going to make up the first three parts of this week's podcast. So there'll be more for the podcast as well. So you still have to listen to the podcast as well as this. We've got a packed show, and we've got a full house of guests. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
I'm Zachary Adam Eisenheimer.
And I am Stephen Agen.
Yes, we're across two continents. We've got Zach out in his shrubbery again, whose audio is cracking up a little bit as well. So hopefully he's going to be with us for the whole thing. And we've got the luchador, Steve Pander, found his mask after being unmasked last week.
Yes, that's right.
It might also be that he is hiding his shame after
a little bit of that
performance.
A little bit of that.
So I've got some fun props. My lighting isn't great. My connection isn't great, so I'm not crystal clear. But I'll show you what I do have. Naturally, there is a packet of chocolate digestives. Got to have that ready to go. And I feel after that performance, I need a lot of sweet treats. So I've got some Turnix tea cakes as well. And I thought it's after 10 o'clock. It's after dark. So let's not bother with being PC and drown our sorrows with my last Whitecaps beer that the Whitecaps sent me. So we'll crack this open. We'll get drunk. Anything goes now. Here we go.
The season's over.
Yeah.
Well, the season's over. You might as well crack the last one.
Yeah. I've always wanted to crack one off on camera, so here we go. I'm ready to go.
Michael, the Whitecaps didn't gut the fish, but tonight I'll be eating some fish.
Excellent. And Stephen, I was so looking forward to introducing this as the Seattle Sounders end of season special. It doesn't look like that's happening, but have you brought any special treats with you to share?
Oh, let's see here, Michael. I have a Rainier with me to celebrate 3 points in the Emerald City. Finally, Seattle on the board in Orlando. Cheers. Woke up at 6 a.m. the other day to watch them lose to Chicago on two abysmal defensive errors. And I have to tell you,
that'll be us on Thursday.
That's a horrible start to your day, man. Just, I swear, anything's better than that. Wake me up with a bee sting first. Just anything.
And my little treat for everybody is that I put together a little video of Whitecaps scoring against Sounders in games that they actually got a result in. So this is
fantastic.
This goes all the way back to Hasley.
I thought it was going to be a different kind of video that was coming up there.
No.
We can do a commentary on this.
You can just keep watching this as it goes on. So it'll be about a 6-minute video. It'll go back and forth. So we can continue with the talk of this game, I guess.
No, I'm fine just to sit and watch this. It's better than talking about the game, if we're being totally honest. But I guess we are here to talk about the game. So let's start by just saying where the land lies right now for the Whitecaps, which is very unsteady. They're bottom of Group B. They've got a goal difference now of -4. They've got 0 points. But thanks to the wonderful San Jose Earthquakes and that strange 2-0 victory that they had earlier tonight, the Whitecaps are still alive. To quote, I know that you guys are big Star Trek fans because you're always talking about Star Trek. There's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Or not much of it anyway. They need a big swing in the last game against Chicago, so we'll talk about that. But I mean, first of all, let's just go around the room. We'll start with our guest, Stephen. If you were marking the Whitecaps on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give the chances of making it out of this group and being in the knockout rounds?
Oh boy, out of 10, 2. I'm gonna have to give it a 2. It takes a goal on a set piece and just absolute perfect play at the back and a real tight 1-0 win against Chicago, and then a lot of help, right?
No, they can't even do that. They can't do that with a 1-0 win. They have to win by 2.
1-0 isn't good enough.
Yeah, they need at least 2 to overtake Chicago.
Is it too tougher yet? Maybe it's down to a 1 then. It's just, I think they have to do it on set pieces probably. I just don't think there's a lot happening from open play. And unless something really wacky happens, it's going to take just a stellar defensive performance to even have a shot.
And you got
to, Steve.
No, bro. And you got to look at it too that the Chicago, they're they've had a great performance against Seattle. Yeah. So they're kind of used to that. So they have an idea of what's going on. Whereas Vancouver, it's going to be their first time in the morning, and that'll be totally different.
Yeah, I think going. Well, sorry, haven't I used that?
I was just surprised that Steven said 2 out of 10 chance. I thought that was like crazy high, like really optimistic. There's no way that they're beating Chicago by 2 or more and getting one of the third place spots,
especially with the injuries.
Yes, well,
new injury.
Yeah, but we'll come to some of that. We'll come to the Chicago game as well when we delve into things a little bit later. If we look at the group, though, I mean, did anyone fancy San Jose to go through? Never mind actually win it.
I could have seen them going through, but topping, no.
Yeah, I thought because they didn't have very many changes, I think, from the year before. So they're a team that probably has the least amount of changes, and the fact that I didn't know this beforehand, but I didn't realize they had gone in there like 2 weeks before, and that's a huge advantage to being there 2 weeks before everybody else or most teams.
Their core is significantly better than it's been in years past, I think, or, as they've evolved under Almeida. Judson's a really solid player. Ewell had a great game today. I think Alanis really holds the whole thing together for him. And they've got a few solid attacking pieces with Vako and Huson. And then, of course, Wando's still Wando, right? And when you put it all together, it's so much more coherent than it's been before. And Almeida, he really is top class, isn't he? And I think just having his direction on everything has been so important for them. And now they're getting the results from it. But I certainly didn't pick it myself.
I do miss his hair. I don't think he looks the same with that short hair. But let's talk about Wando, the man with the oversized jersey. A minute coming on the pitch, putting the ball in the back of the net. I mean, that's a luxury super sub, I think every team in MLS would love to have. But what a guy. It's just fantastic stuff.
Yeah, he's our Freddie Montero, essentially.
Yeah, that's what Freddie could have been for us, Stephen, in this tournament if he'd made the trip. That's what I was hoping for. But, I mean, Wando, he just doesn't show any signs of like easing up, really, does he? He has 5 goals in 2 games against Chicago now.
And I found this out in the last game that he was available in 2 expansion drafts. And I had no idea that was the case. That's amazing that nobody decided to pick him up.
You a big Wanda fan, Stephen?
I mean, he has just torched Cascadia for so many over the years. I can't even count how many tweets I've put out recounting his goals. It's constant, it's been an omnipresent fixture in MLS from the time that I started watching the league until now. And I think it annoyed me for a long time. And as I've gotten older, I've just come to appreciate how great he is and what he adds to the league. And the fact that he's done it in San Jose, where, outside of a brief window in 2012, have just suffered from, obscurity almost the entire time. But he keeps scoring. So.
Yeah, I like Steve's video is fantastic. It's like we've brought a guest on from Seattle and we're trolling him by just showing his team getting ripped apart. But I guess
no. I'm sorry, Michael. It's hilarious because the deal is like in half of these games, Seattle still gets a result despite what's going on in the background.
Well, if I had done just wins, there would have been that many goals. It would have been a shorter video.
I was going to say you've got the last laugh anyway because of tonight. So we'll get to this game very soon. Last thing I just want to mention about that San Jose Chicago game is it set everything up perfectly for the Whitecaps. I thought Chicago would win, and I thought that was going to mean that if the Whitecaps didn't win tonight, they'd be bounced from the tournament. But San Jose's win meant that, barring a heavy defeat tonight, which you could argue whether 3-0 was a heavy defeat or not, the Whitecaps were still in with a fighting chance of going through. And I don't know if that would have affected MDS's game plan a little bit going into it, knowing that they could maybe attack a little bit more or risk trying to get some goals. But he went for a no-change starting lineup. Owusu, who we thought was going to be out, turned out to be fully fit. Well, fit at least, and he started the game. Were you surprised by that? Did you expect some changes?
So, Mike, you're talking about the starting 11?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I thought it was a weird case of same ingredients, different recipe, but ultimately a very, very poor dish. Yeah, they just tried to shuffle things around, right? Just moved Milinkovic to the back further on the right side, kind of put Russell out wide left, but sort of tucked in with Ali overlapping him, and it wasn't enough to shut down Seattle's quality designated players who create much of, if not all, that they have going forward.
So, sorry, Russell was playing in this game.
Oh my God.
Okay. I mean, Steve, they went 4-4-2. That's afterwards, just on MDS's post-game presser there, he said that is basically what this team is built to play. Didn't really look like that.
No, not in that case. And the thing is, the reason why is because they still didn't have that that wide player. Like they had to move one of your wide players to homie. And you could talk about this lineup, but maybe 4-4-2 would work if they had all their players in there. Because you're missing all those strikers, and then you have Reina and his homie that could go out wide then at that point. So I think it would work in that case.
Now, Stephen, when I saw Seattle's lineup, it looked the strongest starting lineup they could have put out there. They had all the big guns in. They had Morris starting, Rui Diaz, Ladero. It looked that Schmetzer was going for it from the off. He wanted to get some early goals on the board. That's what they ended up doing. But when you saw that lineup, is that how you thought about it as well?
Yeah, I think pretty much Schmetzer had kind of tipped his hand a bit in an interview a day or two before where he mentioned a lot of what was going to happen, that Yaimar Gomez Andrade was not going to be available, that Shane O'Neill would play, that Handwalla Bwana would get significant minutes. And so I think that was the one that probably outsiders might look at and be a little bit surprised at. But Bwana's been really solid for Seattle, and I think he had a good game as well tonight. But I was most interested to see that the Whitecaps were playing a flat 4-4-2. That didn't really make a ton of sense to me, to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of people have success doing that against Seattle. They're playing 4-2-3-1 with the two different lines in midfield, and they just combine so well in the center of the park. You have to have bodies there, and they can't all be in one line, just static in two blocks of four, right? And I think that was a death sentence from the offing.
Yeah, I think as well that Seattle cottoned on pretty quickly. The best way to attack was going to be up the left, their left, the Whitecaps right, and that's where a lot of the danger was coming from. Jordan Morris was just like unplayable at times out there. But it was a fast-paced start by both teams, and it was going back and forward. Both teams had their chances in the opening 10 to 12 minutes, and you thought, oh, this is going to be a good game. But you did also think as well, as soon as Seattle do get a goal, it's going to be tough for the Whitecaps to get back into it. And that's when you look back at these early chances that the Whitecaps had. And I know Seattle had them as well, but you're kind of ruin the chances that the Whitecaps had before that first goal. Don't know if it would have made a great deal of difference, but it was a promising start. I mean, that first 10 minutes gave us a bit of hope that if they can keep that going or try and get that going against Chicago, we might get something. Anyone?
Thought there was some good combination play down the middle in particular, and it made me think that the forward combination might even work for a moment. I thought Reina in particular had a good first 10 minutes, and then that Milinkovic shot, the way that he was able to just skip past Nuhu that way, it was dangerous. And for all of Seattle's attacking spark and creativity that they came out with, they looked susceptible on the back end, and there were chances. There was space for Vancouver. And I think you're right. I think that opening 10 minutes, that's the best stretch of the entire game. Best look for Vancouver comes in there. And the failure to convert there probably is the ultimate issue.
Yeah. Well, let's get the first goal. Penalty. It's the new rules. If the ball hits the hand in the box, it's going to be a penalty. Kamiri didn't know too much about it, but I mean, it was going to be a penalty if it hit the hand. I think it was a bit harsh giving him the yellow. I think that is in the new rules though as well, but it was easily drilled home by Ladero. And I think Crepeau sold himself a little bit early in it. He kind of really telegraphed what way it was going to go down. So Ladero had the easy job of slotting it home. And I mean, anyone not think it was a penalty?
I think it was a little harsh. I thought they were. I didn't feel like he exposed his arm outwards. I felt he was doing his best possible to keep it in, as you can see by the picture. I brought photographic evidence to the show. But like he didn't like take his hand outwards. He was keeping it in as far as in. I thought the rules were that if you made yourself bigger. I don't feel like he made himself bigger. I felt his arm he was trying to keep it as tight as possible. I saw it in a different game too, where they were doing something like that, where the player tried to keep it as close as possible. I think it was the Colorado game against Sporting Kansas City, and he tried to keep his hand in, and then Ganter called it a foul on that one too, a penalty.
Yeah, that's Ganter though. We'll come to him in the third part.
I mean, I thought by the rules, Michael, it's a penalty. Yeah, his hand isn't super extended, but even the picture you got there, Steve, that you sent, I mean, his hand is out out enough, and according to the rules, the ball touches the hand, it's a PK. Like I don't know, we've already seen in this tournament lots of people and commentators talk about how their issue isn't necessarily with the ref on the field or the VAR people, it's with the rule itself. And so you can say you don't like the rule, but I think the rule has been implemented the way it's written. So I don't see this changing until IFAB or whatever decides that maybe, hey, this is not what they want. But yeah. I mean, we talked about this a lot in the past, Michael, about how many players will look to just play the ball off the arm when they have the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that would be the case here, but by the
no, it was fired in though at some force. I mean, there wasn't really much you could do about it. I did have a discussion on Twitter though about players nowadays. They always turn away from the ball instead of just letting it kind of come towards them. It's a natural reaction. I think it is hard not to do that. But I mean, Ladero took the penalty really well. And after that, Stephen, I mean, you must have thought, oh, well, that's it. There's no looking back now.
After the second one, it was hard to see a way. You know, I think that's the one where it kind of ceased to be a competitive game. But just to touch on the penalty just quickly, you know, I thought there was that partial update to the rule where if the ball deflects off of one of your own teammates and then hits you, that they'd be more lenient towards that type of thing when it's accidental.
Maybe.
But and so I was talking about it with the ref account, with the MLS ref account on Twitter, one of the, not the official one, but one of the fan ones. And they were saying that the only explanation is that it's that his hand is making his frame bigger there, and that it's in an unnatural, the hand is in an unnatural position. But for me, I thought it was really awfully harsh. I thought it was harsh, and I'm absolutely with you. The yellow card's over the top for it. I'm not really sure what he's supposed to do about it.
And that kind of, and for a guy like Kamiri, who he likes to dive in and tackles, getting that yellow card early, that kind of negates the way he plays too all the time. The other thing about they did a review, but they didn't go to the actual screen, right? So the VAR people didn't even recommend a review on there because it was so judgmental on there.
Yeah, I mean, they thought it was fine. But I mean, it did look a long way back, even at 1-0. But when it got to 2, it certainly looked like a long way back. But I mean, that goal, just one of the many things that I thought Jordan Morris did fantastically tonight, Stephen. He was my man of the match for the Sounders. If he just, like, the way that he played against Nerwinski and Kamiri up that wing, he just had the beating off them all night. And with the goal, he pounces on the loose ball, he makes the run, he receives the lofted pass, great composure. Nerwinski can't barge him off the ball, buries it nicely.
For him, it's been hotter than heck in Orlando. Whatever it is, he certainly had it tonight. And man, he looks, as you mentioned earlier, borderline unplayable. when he's at top speed, combines so well, not just with Ladero, but with Rui Diaz as well. And I mean, just could do it all, was cutting in and taking shots, was getting to the end line and putting in cutbacks. He ran the whole show for Seattle, I thought, maybe even more so than Ladero normally does.
Well, I think the difference between Morris in the first two games of this game was that he wasn't playing the Whitecaps in the first two games, especially the back line. With the second game, wasn't he a sub? He came on for half an hour or something like that, I thought.
I think it was he came on, But I mean, like Rui Diaz didn't look very good in the first couple of games, and Ladero didn't look great. Morris didn't look great. Tonight, it's like something clicked. Although, and like I know Steve's partly being funny, but he is right. It's like they're playing against a Whitecaps defense that afterwards, and we'll talk a bit more about what MDS said afterwards, but I wrote down what he said in his post-game presser. He described the Whitecaps defense as incredibly unstable. Now, that's damning words from your head coach. And he says that they have to get to grips with this. And if they don't, then they've got no chance.
Yeah, a couple of things. Jasser Kamiri has not looked good at all. Many people have been commenting on this in the MLS's back tournament. His play in these two games has not been good. I also think that Jake Nerwinski was really, really poor this evening. His ball behind Owusu is what led to this goal. It was a poor pass. But Owusu then takes a heavy touch because it's behind him, and then it kind of hands it to Seattle, and then they march down the other way. And Nerwinski can't recover enough to to really trouble Jordan Morris. I didn't think he looked good. If I can just share, Michael, too, this is something Jonathan Pinkney was talking about in our comments here. He says, can you guys discuss how clearly Schmetzer seems to have the Caps beat tactically every time? They clearly target Jake at right back and then let the Caps have the ball in non-dangerous areas. So, I think the way Seattle went at Jake was, I think I would agree, was intentional.
Interestingly, the TSN commentators said that they thought Nerwinski was the Whitecaps' best player in the night, and I was like,
"Well, they changed it up afterwards, saying that other than his mistakes, he was the best player." Which I don't know how you can do that. The biggest thing about I know tactically you're saying that, but for me, the Whitecaps have never, and I know the players have changed and everything. Ever since that Robbo playoff game, where they played to not to lose. Ever since then, the Whitecaps have never had a great result against the Sounders. It seems like, I don't know if it's mentally got into the media and the supporters, and the players are just not good enough, or it's kind of like dwelled into the players too over time. But it's odd the way that it's been like 3 years since they played the Sounders well enough to win.
I mean, Stephen, is it fair to say that Schmetzer just has a reading of the Whitecaps? Because I was on his pre-game call on Friday or Saturday. Friday, it would have been. And I was surprised that he revealed some players that would definitely be starting. Like, he confirmed Arriaga was going to be starting. And, like, just to come out and say, yeah, he's going to start. This is going to do this. He was very open, as if he's, like, challenging the Whitecaps. This is what we're going to do. It's up to you to somehow defeat this.
I want to be clear that I mean this is objective analysis. Schmetzer has had some impressive tactical victories, some impressive tactical successes the last 3 or 4 years. None of the most 5 or 10 or 15 most impressive have to do with beating the Vancouver Whitecaps. Just not. It's not at the level of what he's been capable of. You look at what Seattle did at LAFC last year in the playoffs, where they just turned it on. That's insurmountable. You couldn't figure out how anybody could possibly come up with that with the team that he had compared to LAFC. But Vancouver's at square one every time Seattle sees them for that's the last 3 years since the playoff series. And I think you're exactly right, Zach. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it was Zach or Steve who mentioned it. Vancouver played not to lose against Seattle in that playoff series, and it's never looked right since. And it just, I don't think Schmetzer has to think about it very hard. I think he sends his team out there and says, roll the ball and watch how it goes. And I think it works for him every time.
It was Steve, but he was speaking for both of us. But seriously though, like the other thing I think Steve just said is that the thing that can be undermined here is just the gap in the quality of players, the gap in the investment in the squads. Like it's clear, like from another today is another example of it. Obviously Vancouver's in a special situation where they're missing even some of their better players, but the gap is huge, and I don't foresee that ever being returning to a place where it feels like there's a bit of a balance and it's a bit of a challenge, like maybe back earlier in even in the early days of MLS. It's always going to feel like it's going to take the Whitecaps to play out of their skin to beat teams like Seattle.
Well, another interesting thing that Schmetzer said on that call on Friday was he said that one of the proudest things he is of this Seattle team, Stephen, is that no matter what the odds are, they find a way to win. They find a way to get the job done. They did it tonight. They didn't have to maybe move out of second gear or third gear too much, but they did what he said. They got the job done.
Well, don't get me wrong. Jordan Morris is a skilled player, and he did a lot of very skilled things on the field tonight. But he also just straight up wanted it more than Nerwinski did on that side, and I think you could see it. He out hustled him the whole time, and that's not to suggest that Nerwinski can match him for pace. That's not to suggest that it isn't a structural failure for the Whitecaps every time he gets matched up one-on-one on the wing with him. But that being said, I mean, he got out hustled by Morris repeatedly. And, I think the first 15 minutes of the second half, you could kind of see how this was going to go, where it was just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Every time Seattle touched the ball, it's a diagonal ball in behind and it's a chance. And there wasn't an answer.
Well, the Whitecaps had, I think it was 60, might have been 66, but I think it was 60% possession in that first half. But they had no bite, no attacking threat, one shot on goal. And the final third, it was just, as we've seen too many times, was the place where attacks went to die. At that point, you were just hoping that things wouldn't get too out of hand. It wouldn't affect the goal difference, because otherwise we'd have to score an absolute barrel load against Chicago, which you still feel that they are going to have to do now to get through. Could they turn it around? Could they change things in the second half? Well, if you listen to this on the podcast, we'll talk about that after the break. And for those of you watching the live stream, we'll just get straight into it just now. So the second half of Seattle and Vancouver, we only had to wait 6 minutes for a Sounders third. And after me moaning so much and talked to MDS about this in our conference call during the week about unmarked players in the 6-yard box, there's Rui Diaz, unmarked, just ready to, I want to say a tap in, but he had to do a little bit more than just tap it in, but not much. But I mean, how do you let a guy like that just unmarked in the 6-yard box?
It's mind-boggling, and they were saying that they were doing like a hybrid zonal man marking today. That's what they were saying on the broadcast. I think the confusion was definitely clear there that they were doing the hybrid. I can understand how he could slip in because he's basically the smallest player in the box, but still, you have to pay attention to the guy. He's so dangerous in and around the box, outside the box, everywhere. So that's the one guy you really have to pay attention to. And if you're going to do like a hybrid man marking zonal thing, that's the guy you want to man mark.
Yeah. So far in our first 2 games, we've left Wondo and Rui Diaz unmarked in the 6-yard box, Stephen.
Well, I mean, just, such an uphill climb to begin with. One forward on the roster down there. How's it going to work when you're giving up, corner kick goals on unmarked set pieces? It's just, it's incompatible with taking good results.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of the, sorry.
Well, it's not even leaving Rui Diaz unmarked. It's the unmarked man at the near post on the header to begin with.
Too.
Like it's shocking, like that you can allow a near post header like that on a corner at this level. Like that's just like inexcusable.
But I mean, when I spoke to Mark about it during the week, and he said, yeah, you want to talk about the 2 goals we let in from the corners, but we defended 20 of them really well. And it's like, yeah, but you gave away 22 corners. At least positive from tonight, there was not 22 corners. We've got to take
That
what
is
we
a
can.
positive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we'll rattle through the rest of the game. We'll get to folks' comments. The big talking point really for the rest of the game came in just a couple of minutes after Rui Diaz's third, 54th minute. Buana, Crepeau, clash in the box. Not intentional by Buana at all. He went for the ball. Max, just unfortunate, gets his hand under it, gets stamped on. Looked like he got hit in the stomach as well, but it seems to be the hand injury that ruled him out. MDS was asked after the game if he'd had any updates on him, and it was a very short answer of no, he hasn't. So it's not looking good because they had to cut the glove off. But I mean, Zach, he's the one guy last season that was the shining light. If you lose him now, we don't know what there's going to be for the rest of the season. You don't know how long he might be out for, but it's just they can't catch a break just now, except in this case, they maybe have caught a break because it could be his hand that's fractured.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch it, you think that that's got to be what's happened. Otherwise, it's very badly bruised. But yeah, my guess would be that he has some kind of broken bone in there. But I mean, yeah, the play. There's nothing wrong with the play. The player's going for the ball. Max is going to win the ball. It happens. But yeah, in terms of the Whitecaps and their the possibilities for what even the Chicago game, just thinking about that, and also thinking beyond that. Without Max Crepeau, I don't know that there's too many people who can see them getting much out of the Chicago game without him, and then beyond that, doing much without him. I mean, Meredith's gone presumably for the Chicago game, and then who knows what's going to happen after that. So I don't know, like who's the third? Who's now the backup keeper?
Well, you've got Thomas Hassel. So I mean, he came on, but they don't have. They have got the fourth keeper, Isaac. I can't remember his last name. Isaac's the fourth keeper, but I don't know that he's down there with them or not.
He's not down there.
The one positive is that Zach's medical diagnosis is usually off because he had Owusu out for the season from the last game, and he played quite a bit of minutes today. So that's the one positive about Max Crepeau we can take it. Another one is that Thomas Hassel came in and he showed a lot of poise in that one play he did against Rui Diaz. But you can I don't know what his voice sounds like, but what was it?
You heard him.
The one of the commentators was saying that who's he? I'm drawing a blank because I haven't seen games in a long time. One of them was mentioning that Paul Dolan. That's Paul Dolan.
How can you forget Paul Dolan?
I forgot. It's in my mind. Paul Dolan was mentioning that he could hear him on the pitch and shouting out, and he said that's one of the hardest things to do for young keepers is getting a hold of, and he seemed to be getting a hold of everybody.
I thought he did excellent. The double save. I was a bit surprised though, Stephen, that Seattle didn't really try and test him a bit more. But by that point, do you think Seattle had kind of just switched off and they thought, job done, let's not waste any more energy than we need to?
Yeah, this is one of my theories about soccer in the bubble. With the home crowd removed, it's taken away the incentive for the home team to entertain.
That's true.
And we could get, because I was checking over some of the tables, I'm sure we'll talk about later, but we could potentially see some East Germany, Austria type games in the last round.
I asked Axel during the week, if teams knew what it was going to be like going in, was it going to be like West Germany and Austria in the 1982
was it West Germany? I thought it was
final?
East Germany.
Yeah. And he said he tries not to think about that. I told him it scarred my childhood. So, I mean, the rest of the game, not too much to talk about. MDS made 5 subs. That was a positive. Reina, well, there was a few chances for the Whitecaps late on. Reina had a chance that he blasted over. That in the back of my head, I still think we don't have a great chance of going through, but there is still a chance. And you have to think, if one of these chances had gone in, that in the grand scheme of things for goal difference might have been massive. So you had Reina.
I think it would. I think they still would have had to win by 2, even if they got 1 goal in.
I think
that.
I don't think that by 2 just now, I don't think makes a big difference because I've looked at the standings, and I mean, depending on how many games get drawn and out of the last games and stuff like that, I think they're going to need 3 or 4 to get through, because I don't think a minus goal difference is going to do it. But I mean, it feels to me, Stephen, that these chances that they had late on, Seattle had switched off a little bit, and they had to take 1 or 2 of those, I think, to be in with a fighting chance.
So I think here's the revisionist history for me you can go over is you can say, first off, there's the Owusu header on the free kick in the first half that we didn't talk about, I think inside of 15 minutes.
Very good point.
That's the most important chance of the game. I'm sorry, I totally missed it earlier, but I mean, that is a free header with Fry on the opposite side of the goal. If that's on target, it's in the back of the net every single time. He's got to cash that, right? So let's say Owusu hits that one. Let's say that Whitecaps don't give up a free goal on a corner at the start of the second half, just out of nothing. And let's say that Reyna does get the one in the mid-80s. That's 2-2, and you get a point.
Yep. If the Queen had ball, she'd be the king.
Yeah, I was expecting that. I think I was.
Yeah. It's our traditional thing. We have to say it. But I mean, it's very true. As a once wise man used to say, fine lines. It's fine lines. If we're looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly from the Whitecaps, and then we'll get Stephen to do a good and bad, the ugly for Seattle. If you're looking at the good, I'm saying Thomas Hasal, and just it showed something good. And I thought Ranko as well had another pretty solid game.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, the bad was just the general lack of creativity in that final third until really late on. But the ugly was also that, but also the way that Morris just ripped them apart up that side.
Yeah, I would say one of the good was the 66% possession. And then I would say bad is the 66% possession and the getting no goals out of it.
Yeah. Zach, what's your good, bad, and ugly for Vancouver?
It was all ugly. Yeah, I don't know. What seriously, what good can you take away from that game and that performance? Like, I don't think anything. There's nothing positive.
Nobody died on the pitch.
You're not giving us a man of the match.
I guess Thomas Hassel. Thomas Hassel. How do you say? Is it Hassel, or we've always said Hassel, but then
I think it's Hassel.
Oh, okay. Well, Thomas was the only bright spot, and yeah, so he's the good. The bad was everything else, and the ugly is Max Crepeau's hand.
Oh yeah. It's kind of sad that your good thing is a young homegrown guy coming on because your main player gets injured and has gone out. But anyway, Stephen, if you were doing a good and bad and ugly for Seattle, what would you pick?
The good's pretty easy. Jordan Morris getting back into form, looking great, looking like a top attacker in MLS. The bad, from a Cascadian perspective, I love it, but from the Seattle perspective, it looks like the Sounders are headed for either LAFC or Portland in the knockout round, and I believe that is going to be a tall task for them either way.
Yeah.
The ugly is the center back situation with Arriaga potentially concussed with the shot he took to the head late in the game. O'Neill appeared to pull up a little bit as well. We're not sure if he's good. And then with Gomez Andrade already a bit injured, it looks like Seattle could have some type of center back pairing like Svensson Delem or something like that. Kind of odd stuff coming up for their knockout round game with their back line.
Steven, is it bad that I had the ball to Arriaga's face as one of my potential highlights of the game?
I thought it was nice that Reyna, like literally the second that it happened, he's not worried about where the ball's going. He's not worried about, is this going to create a Whitecaps chance? He's going over to Arriaga and encouraging him to sit on the ground and like trying to get the ref to stop the game. And I thought it was a nice moment of sportsmanship. And as a guy who covers all these teams at the same time, it made me feel warm and fuzzy.
I think that's what happens when you play a Cascadia match like halfway across the continent. You're not going to have that same anger and venom at each other.
Yeah, you don't have to Whitecaps fans sing "Dig a hole and bury him."
Yeah.
talking of
Well,
like,
and no matter what happens, no, sorry to interrupt, Michael. No matter what happens, nobody wants head injuries, right? We all want to come out of the game, and we don't want to see what happened to Crepeau happen. We don't want head injuries.
yeah.
We want to have great rivalries, but not life-threatening difficulties.
we don't want any more people ending up like Taylor Twellman.
We should tell the Whitecaps that Seattle wants a great rivalry.
But like talking of balls to the face, and you might wonder where I'm going with this, but ex-Whitecap Jose Aja took one straight to the face for Minnesota in one of the games. And afterwards, I don't think I mentioned this last time round, but afterwards, Adrian Heath was asked about it. And it's like he looked like he was concussed. Should he have come off? And Heath goes, no, he's from Uruguay. They don't have concussions in Uruguay. Not the best medical advice, I thought.
Steve, nice picture.
Oh, yeah.
All the good
just
memories.
Quickly go through the stats because I've just looked at them just now and I'm actually a little bit stunned by some of them. The Whitecaps had more passes than Seattle and better passing accuracy than Seattle, including 44 more passes in the final attacking half.
Wow.
And they had 7 more passes in the final third. I was watching a different game.
I can't wait to see JJ Adams' heat map after this one.
But it just shows you that stats don't mean everything when it comes to especially things like football.
Yeah. Well, the Whitecaps only had 2 shots on target in the whole game to Seattle's 7. So I mean, there was.
What was the XG, Michael?
I don't think I see that here. That's all bollocks anyway, if you ask me. But anyway,
Steven, set them straight on XG.
Does XG count in Orlando? Is it the same there? Is there some type of like multiplier you have to factor in with that?
The Orlando
that's
multiplier.
One of the test results. Yeah. So before we get any further, let's get into the chat because I see that there is a lot of chat questions. This seems a great idea doing a live show until we get all these chat. So I'll just rattle through some of them.
I've been trying to answer some of them there, Michael, as we go.
Oh, cool. So Andrew Chobaniak says it's over. We should all give up on everything.
That's Morbital, right? You know Morbital?
It's morbid. I don't know about Morbital, but yeah, it is Morbital. Mike Gom says, we can't seem to play at night. How could the morning be worse? Find out Thursday at 6 a.m. on TSN. Will Silver asks Steve, is that a Pentagon Junior mask?
It is. The Pentagon Junior.
Yep. Paul Pedersen says, the Caps are playing for the first overall pick in the draft next year. I think we can do it, except it won't be the first pick because Austin come in. So it'll be second pick.
Aren't they delayed too, or are they not delayed?
Austin's coming in. It's Charlotte, Sacramento, and St. Louis that are all delayed by a further year. Let's see. Andrew Chabanik again says, when did Wando start? Was he at Swangard in 2004 with the earthquakes? He remembers Landon Donovan being there. That's before my time. I was here 3 years after that. Were you there for that, Zach?
Zach's gone.
Oh yeah.
No, Michael, he wasn't there. He joined 2005.
Okay. Zach's never looked better. Let's see. Navid Masinchi says, seriously, the game looked like men versus boys. Can't disagree with that one at all. And Jonathan Pinkney says, the difference between how the Sounders kill games off against us compared to how we let San Jose keep pace of the game high until the end is crazy. And that's the difference. It's like the top teams know how to manage games, and that's been a problem of the Whitecaps for many years now, guys.
Was there a moment outside of the first 15 minutes where Seattle wasn't in total control?
No. I mean, even in that first 15 minutes, it was back and forth. So, I mean, Seattle could also have had about 3 or 4 goals in that first 15 minutes. It could easily have been 4-2 if all those chances had gone in, but they were in control from first kick to last. I mean, even the offside goal 3 minutes in, that should have set the alarm bells going for the defense, because I can't remember. I think it was Lodero. It might have been Rui Diaz, but whatever one of the two it was, just waltzed his way through the Whitecaps defence before squaring the ball to Buana, who put it away, but had been offside before that. So, I mean, that was the early signs 3 minutes in that Seattle just had the beating of this team and the taking of this defence.
I mean, geez, they'd produced an end product one time in 180 minutes before that. And then 3 minutes in, you've already got the ball in the net, whether it counted or not.
I was doing the Raphael Wiki press conference upstairs. So I hadn't got the game. So I had just finished and I came down and I looked at my telly and I said to my wife, is the ball in the net? Have they scored already? And then I didn't know what had happened. I was like, this is going to be a long night. And then I saw that it was offside. But a question from Will Silver, is the new car smell off MDS?
I think it's been off for a while. I think the for that first season for a lot of people it was off. The thing is with him is like he's not that he's making excuses, but he constantly has these excuses being given to him.
It was like Robbo always said, I'm not one to make excuses, and then came out with all these excuses.
But here, these ones are more legit. Like especially this tournament, you lose like 5 players right off the bat coming into the thing. Your backup goalie is out, leaves the bubble and is out. It's probably not going to come back at this point. And then you have a couple of injuries during training, and then you have your starting goalkeeper and your MVP from last year go down in the 50th, 60th minute of game 2. You basically are. He's been being given excuses, and I don't know how you could fire a guy who's gone through all this stuff over the last couple of years.
I don't think he's anywhere close to getting fired, but there are a lot of fans who have been. Well, I think
the fans want him to get fired. Fans are looking for him to go or get rid of him or something like that.
Yeah, some are.
Lots of fans are asking this or talking about this in the places that they do. This is not going to be surprising for you, Steve and Michael, but the problem with the Vancouver Whitecaps has not been their coaches' abilities to coach or tactical approach. It's been their willingness to invest in their squad. And when you think back to the Robbo era, and you think back how Robbo used the language of, we need all of our players playing at their level or above, to do well, to achieve. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, Robbo got his players to do that. I think a lot of what we saw in the Robbo era were when they were doing well is because everyone or virtually everyone was playing at their best level or sometimes above that. And I think people saw that and they thought, the Whitecaps as an organization, as a football club, are in a much, like they're doing really well. And they thought that should be the standard, or they thought that that should be the minimum, and the Whitecaps should be able to kick on beyond that. And it's very, very clear to people who've been around long enough, or people who understand, or people who've seen a little bit behind the curtain, that you can't keep doing that. It's not replicable for players to continue to play at their top level or beyond themselves on an ongoing basis, especially in a league like MLS, and especially when your top players are barely at like $1.5 million, and you only have like maybe one of those. And so that's what's going on here. And so anyone who wants to attack, whether it's MDS or Robbo or even Martin Rennie, you can have Tommy Sohn all you want, or even Tater, but those 4 guys, you want to attack any of those 4 guys, they're really, the deck that they've been given is limited, and so the deck is stacked against them in the game that they're playing. So only ownership can choose to help change that situation, and we know that's not changing, and it's not likely to change. And what's going to have to happen is going to be them unearthing some players like Alphonso Davies or whatever who they unearthed. They brought in from Edmonton, or it's going to take Axel Schuster bringing in some people from Germany or from Europe who are diamonds in the rough, or who want to come on a loan spell and play out of their skin because they want to push on to somewhere bigger and better. That Vancouver's going to have a chance to be even semi-competitive in the long run. Otherwise, people need to understand that what we're seeing, even in this MLS's back tournament, is more what they should expect in the long term from this organization.
I disagree with that. And like Stephen, you won't probably have heard MDS post game, but like he got a bit prickly with a question from JJ where he said, "What can we read into what you've got with this team just now?" And a lot of folk are saying, "Oh, they're making excuses for the players that's missing." You can't get away from that. If those players were there, this is a different Whitecaps team. And I mean, you're like neutral in this, Stephen. It's like you have to say that if those players are there, you've got a different kind of game. To an extent, I do feel you still have to get them service, and I don't think it would have mattered who was up front for the Whitecaps tonight. If they're not getting the ball, they're not actually going to do much with it. But that aside, you can't read anything into the team that's there just now because they are missing so many key pieces. 6 or 7 of those guys probably would not be starting. I feel.
I've been wanting to ask you guys, do you think it was fair of MLS to have Vancouver play in this tournament with so many guys missing?
I mean, MLS needed them for numbers. They with
Yeah.
losing to other sides, there was no way they're going to drop down to 23.
But also, it's like that's what
no,
you've got a squad
and I get
for.
that. I understand the logistical aspect to it, but I mean, selfishly now, for the Vancouver Whitecaps, as a fan of this team, is this fair? Would you rather watch this? Would you rather watch going from 3-1 up against Earthquakes to 4-3 down, and then losing 3-zip in a derby where you're not very competitive? Is that better than just saying, you know what, if Cavallini and Montero and Ricketts and so on and so forth can't go, we might as well just sit at home? I don't know the answer. I'm asking the question because I think it might merit discussion.
No, I don't think that's. I don't think they would have been taken out, because the difference between Nashville and FC Dallas being taken out is they had rampant positive tests, whereas Vancouver were getting people opting out or something like that, opting out, or Ricketts' point where he was forced to be opt out or whatever. Like the doctor in charge said that you shouldn't go, or Andy Rose, I think, same thing. So I think in those cases, I don't think it's unfair for MLS to expect the Vancouver to come, because other than that, those 5 players or 6 players that didn't come and who none of them tested positive, so that's not the reason why they didn't come. Vancouver's been very clean. So you know what, you come, you do the tournament, you get some playing time in there. You might as well get some in there. None of us really expected them to do very much going into the tournament. We were hoping that, with FC Dallas, maybe they get something because all their players were falling apart. So I thought maybe we play a B team against FC Dallas, maybe be competitive that game. And then we get Chicago coming in. That changes everything then at that point.
If you look at the biggest complaint that I saw after the first game was there was a big argument. Fans were saying, well, play the young guys. Why are they not playing the young guys? I don't feel this is a tournament. And in that San Jose game, when you're 1 goal up and you've got a team pressing to get back into it, why are you going to bring on young guys to give them their MLS debut? You need to see that game out. Ultimately, they didn't. But if MDS had played the young guys, they'd be like, why is he bringing the young guys on? They couldn't see out the lead. So he can't win in that regard. And I think going into this last game, if it had been meaningless, folk would be like, just play all the young guys. But MDS has made it clear he's wanting these regular season points. So no matter what this last game, if it stood for anything or not, you were always going to get as full a strength of team as possible.
Yeah, but Michael, in the last game, though, here's the thing. The game against San Jose, you don't have to bring on young players for the sake of bringing on young players. However, you need to react, I think, a little bit better when your opponent brings on 4 brand new fresh players with fresh legs who very clearly are running you ragged. And so at that point, it doesn't matter if they're young. It doesn't matter if they're, you take the next best player who can contribute in whatever position and you bring them on because you need some fresh legs. And so I think that was a fair criticism in that game. And in terms of, what I said in terms of what the trajectory of Vancouver, like last year was a part of that, Michael. The team was awful last year, even with I know half a team that maybe MDS wanted and or the third or 2/3 of the team he wanted and a third he didn't. But like the trajectory is not going up. Like that's the thing. I don't think anyone can look at this and say the trajectory is up. Even though, yes, in this tournament, they're missing significant players.
Yeah.
But to answer Steven's question, like, I don't think most parts of the Vancouver fan base don't see MLS as viewing how they engage with the Whitecaps as being fair in general. But I do think there is a segment of them who would have said, "Hey, if Vancouver wasn't there, we would have been fine with that." If
Yeah,
they
I
stayed
agree
home,
with that.
they would avoid potentially being more be able to come more in contact with the virus. If they could stay home and avoid it, most people would have been, I think, fine with that. There were a few people who would have not been super excited, but I think a lot of people would have been like, "Hey, we understand, we're with you."
Well, as I tweeted after the game, MLS is back, but I'm now starting to wish it wasn't. And we got a comment in the chat from Gordy Parentol who says David Norman Jr. would have looked good out there, but that's none of my business. Sips tea. Yep, David Norman would have looked good out there. Sadly, he's injured just now, so he's not able to even be with Miami there. But yeah, Gordy also says that basically it describes the Caps' entire MLS existence. They're just there to make up the numbers. Fair. So far. Steve's away for
He walked out.
He's gone to the concessions, I think. Oh, he's back. Right. Let's quickly finish off this part by looking ahead to Thursday. Now, it's maybe not as huge a game as I thought it was going to be at the start of kickoff because they do have a big job ahead of them. And as things currently stand, they need a 2-goal swing to overtake Chicago. But even with that, looking at the other matches, they'd need a lot of help. The advantage is they do go into the game knowing exactly what they're going to need to do. It's just kind of hard to see them doing it. From the 2 games that you've seen of Chicago so far, I thought they weren't very good defensively. I think there is a lot of hope to take from the goals that they gave up today. The first goal, like defensively, Chicago looked shaky. The first goal today, they looked shaky on the ground. The second goal today, they looked shaky in the air. They weren't picking the man up. They weren't good with pace. And you look at the Whitecaps, Stephen, and the Whitecaps have pace. Raposo, Dahomey, Bayer, Milinkovic, possibly not a lot of pace, but he's got the skill. These are guys that, from what we've seen from Chicago so far, they have the potential to take advantage of them.
And, I think they're going to be those few moments in the game where Whitecaps get the big looks, where they get the big chances. And they certainly did against Seattle today, like we talked about with Owusu and with Reyna. And whether that would have been enough tonight is debatable. But against Chicago, they're going to get some of those looks again. I bet they're going to get at least a few of them. And it comes down to, can you finish? You're not going to get as many of those moments as your opponent is. You're just not going to be able to go toe to toe all the time. And so when those big moments come, you've got to take them. You've got to score. If that big chance comes for Owusu early again, it's got to hit the net. And it's just, I think an early goal, a lead of some sort could do wonders for confidence. I understand 3-1 wasn't safe against Earthquakes a few days ago, but still, look at where we're at right now. Just any type of positive sign, I think, might be met by some type of positive response. But it's just, you're going to have to play really tight all the way around, right? Score a goal on the counter, score a goal on a set piece. A penalty would help, a red card would help, right? But it's just got to be really tight at the back, and it has to be really, really clinical with whatever chances you create.
The other thing is Chicago don't look as deadly up front as, say, what San Jose have and what Seattle showed tonight. They've got Beric, he looked good in the game against Seattle early on and kind of dropped out of it. Tonight, he wasn't really at the races. Sapong, I thought, started off tonight's game really well. As I said, I jumped on the Raphael Wiki conference call after the game just to kind of see what he said. So I jotted down a few of the things that he took away from the game. And he said that they need to learn to be clinical. They need to be more concentrating on set pieces and what they're doing in the last 30 yards. He was frustrated by San Jose's aggression. So if the Whitecaps want to try and get under their skin, show a little bit of aggression, not sure we have the players, though, that's going to be able to do that. He wanted the team against San Jose to keep the ball more. And I'm wondering if that's what the game plan is going to be against the Whitecaps. he also said, though, that sleeping well, eating well, recovery, and using his roster for this is going to be the key to get anything out, and that his message to the team is to keep steady emotionally. He feels the effort was there today, which I didn't. I thought they looked, apart from the first 10, 15 minutes, they looked quite flat. But he seemed fairly confident that they could get the job done against Vancouver.
I would think he's more confident after this, watching Seattle play Vancouver.
Yeah,
as well.
because that was before that performance. For those of you listening on the podcast, I'll play just a little bit of Rafa Wickie's post-game press conference comments for you just now. And that is pretty much it for this part. Quick prediction before we wrap this part up. Score on Thursday. I'll go 1-1.
I'm gonna say 1-1. I think they'll get a result in this game.
Steven, you
I
want
know. I'll give Zach's prediction. It's gonna be 2-0 Chicago.
close? Steven, you want to go or should I go first?
I do have 2-0 Chicago, so Steve got me.
Yeah, I honestly was going to say 2-1 Chicago.
Yeah, so not much hope with us. Let's hope we're proved wrong. I don't think we'll do an ATM breakfast show post-game now, after all.
What?
I'm not sure I'm even going to get up and watch the game. I put a poll out about that earlier in the week. I haven't got it up here just after I checked that. I forgot all about that. And the three options were you going to watch it live? Yes, only if there's something to play for, or no. And the biggest thing with about 44% was no, they're not going to watch it live. And then yes, they will watch it live was also 40-something. And 17% said only if there was something to play for. I probably will get up. I'm just not a morning person, as I've mentioned before. Anyone else here getting up to watch it live?
Well, if we're doing a show, then I will get up and watch it. If not, maybe not.
Yeah, that's me too. That if we're doing a show, then I'll get up. Otherwise, I'll watch it on delay. So it's your call, Michael.
There's something to play for, Michael. There's 3 league points.
Stephen, you getting up nice and early?
You know, I did it once for Chicago, but I just want to say here, you know, living on the west coast of North America, the only time we should be getting up at 6 a.m. to watch one of our clubs play should be if they're in the Club World Cup, and that is absolutely it. If I'm doing that again, it's for something a lot more important than an MLS league match.
Yeah. I'm thinking of not watching the game, but then getting up just in time for MDS's post-game presser and getting the first question and going, I haven't seen the match, Mark. Can you tell me what happened?
That'd be awesome.
We're going to talk in the next part about some of the other matches from this tournament, but the KC Colorado thing, I tweeted out that I wanted my first question to be to Robin Fraser, Dave Ganter, discuss. So I got into the press conference and they sat down and they didn't know the mics was on. And Fraser says I can't remember what player it was, he's like, do not talk about the officiating, not knowing that it was on the mics. So then I raised my hand to ask a question and they never picked me to ask a question. Was gutted by that. Also, Robin Fraser, very grumpy man. One of the other questions I was going to ask him, someone else asked, and I'm glad I didn't ask it because he nearly bit his head off. But anyway, we'll come to talking about that in the next part. And for those of you listening to it on the podcast, we'll be back with that after this. And for those of you watching live, we'll just get straight to it just now. We'll kind of rattle through this bit a little bit. One thing I meant to mention actually in the last part, when you talked about getting up early for games, the World Cup schedule in Qatar, 2 a.m., 5 a.m., 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. games on the West Coast in the group stages.
But I have a feeling that the games that we would probably want to watch, they'll probably schedule it so that a lot of our games will be. Oh, hello. A lot of our games will be probably those later ones. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
the
probably.
European ones.
Well, I don't know. Can't guarantee that. Yeah, she got up. So I thought I'd may as well get her on.
Score?
Is Penny what?
Does Penny predict scores?
No, I've tried. She's no interest in football. She takes that after my wife. I've been worried that you've been hearing her panting in the mic the whole time. So if you do hear heavy breathing, it is her. It's not me, because the light in here is terrible. And I actually have a spotlight on me and her just now, and I am melting. I'll show you my top I'm wearing. It's my 1996 East Fife third strip tartan.
Yeah, okay.
We wore this against Man United. Lost 4-0 against a team that had Beckham, Scholes, all these top guys in it. I've told this story before. Outside the match, I was selling fanzines, and I went to give one to Alex Ferguson. I went, "There you go, Alex." And then he signed it and gave it back to me. I went, "No, it's for you to read." And then I gave him another one. I have a
So you
feeling
kept
he
the one
probably didn't read it.
You kept the autographed one though, right?
I've still got the autograph one, yeah.
That's good.
I'll sell that when he dies. I thought I could have sold it last year, but that didn't work out. Anyway, let's get into the MLS tournament chat. General thoughts, lads, from what we... Good beer, this. General thoughts, lads, of what we have seen so far in the tournament. It's been batshit crazy this week. No team, it seems, Stephen, can defend in MLS right now.
Yeah, it's weird. I just, 30,000 foot view. I have a hard time judging anyone in the bubble, anything that goes on in Orlando, and taking any of it too seriously, And it seems like some of the analysts, particularly on the national broadcasts, want to make something of the performances, want to extrapolate some trend from March to here and that kind of thing. And I think this is such a crapshoot one-off. You know what I mean?
I think the probably the game that probably displays that the most is the one where Atlanta lost. I think it was to Cincinnati.
To Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
swearing.
the one that really encompasses that you can't really take too much out of this tournament at all.
No.
Well,
Cincinnati's another team that haven't let me ask questions. The last couple of conference calls have gone on as well. I don't know if it's after my Alan Koch interview or not, that he was quite critical of them.
Maybe they heard our talking about their culture or something like that on our show.
I'll give you an example real quick. The Seattle fan base is freaking out about Arriaga, who they just brought in last June, right? Was a designated player when they got him, is now just on a TAM contract now that Joao Paulo is here. But they're saying, man, this guy can't defend. He's 24, right? He's 24. He's been out of Ecuador for less than a year. Started in the game where Seattle knocked out LAFC at LAFC, and then MLS Cup again 10 days later, right? But apparently, because after several months away and then a shortened second preseason, because Arriaga made 2 mistakes in a game against the Chicago Fire at 6 a.m. Pacific time, he is no longer the future center back for the Seattle Sounders. Go figure.
I would love him.
That just doesn't hold water for me.
No, I think he should be centre back, definitely, because he seems dreadful. He should play every game.
Don't get me wrong. He's had a tough tournament here so far, but I mean, man, the guy's already got 1 ring.
True. If you want to talk tough tournaments, have a word with Jasser Kamiri. Let's look at the Canadian derby on Thursday. TFC Montreal. It's as if they thought, okay, we watched that 3-3 game the night before. We can do better than that. It wasn't such shit defending, to be fair, that you saw in the Quakes Vancouver game, but it was an entertaining derby. And I think the main turning point was Montreal letting TFC score seconds after they brought him over from the... Yeah. I mean, that's a killer for the team. And I've been in a couple of calls with Montreal this week, and like Thierry Henry just he doesn't really know what to do with his team right now. He kind of sounded a little bit dejected today when I heard him actually talk. Well, after the first game, he felt he wasn't getting the passion that he wants to see.
Yeah. And after all his the way he coached in Monaco, it's surprising that he hasn't been able to get Montreal the Impact going on the right track.
I mean, when you talk about this tournament, you one of the things that you can't talk about it without talking about the people who aren't there, right? So in Vancouver, it's very obvious. There's multiple significant players who are not there. But then you also Martinez isn't with Atlanta, right? You got what's his face at the Goats too. Carlos Vela
Vela.
is not there. There's a number of players who are not there, which I think maybe not taints the tournament, but it definitely shapes people's perception of it. However, also in a tournament like this, with all its foibles and weirdness and crazy kickoff times and all that, you do have a few interesting and positive and meaningful stories coming out of it, and Toronto is one of them, and Akinola and his goal scoring prowess, both against DC and against Montreal, is one of the highlights, or one of the more significant and interesting things that's happened. Also, it's not just on the field he's been exciting. It's the potential off-field drama in terms of, will he stay with the US? Will he choose to play for Canada, or will he maybe decide, answer an email from Nigeria and go there?
You never want to answer emails from Nigeria.
Yeah, don't do that.
No.
I'm glad you got my joke there. Okay, so but no, it probably has been the highlight of the tournament in my opinion. Is he's been the star, and he's been a great talking point, and you kind of, I guess, you just hope that he's able to, whenever the season resumes or when next year starts, that he's able to kick on and keep going, if not at the crazy pace he's going with 5 goals in two games, but somewhat of a regular scoring pace, and be able to continue to develop as a professional footballer.
I think as long as Herdman confirms that he's not going to play right back, I think there's a very good chance he'll play for Canada. I think that's might be the tipping point right there.
I mean, what have you made of Akinola, Stephen? I mean, right now he is an American because he's been capped at youth level. He has said that he's open to whoever he plays for internationally. Canada, there's a kind of story that was on Twitter earlier this week that Canada hadn't treated him very well, or hadn't made overtures to him, so that's why he ended up at the US. I mean, I guess you wouldn't have seen too much of him, but what have you seen from these matches? And I know, going back to what we said, you can't read too much into this little bubble atmosphere, but he's looked fantastic.
I think, to be clear, it's fairer to read into people having explosive breakout performances than it is to read into people having some type of negative performance, right? Where a guy, makes, once again, back to Arriaga, makes a couple mistakes, doesn't mean he's not going to have a successful career in the league. To be honest, I haven't seen a ton of Akinola yet. I've focused most of my attention on the Western Conference. But I think with guys like Bradley and Altidore on the same club there, it makes it an interesting proposition for him, living in Canada but having these American stars on the team with him. And to be honest, I'm sorry, I don't know him well enough to know. Haven't heard his particular comments on the matter to have a gut feeling one way or the other yet.
Well, another fun fact from me. I was on a TFC call during the week, and I asked Akinola a 2-part question, and then he answered the first part, and then he couldn't remember the second part. So I said, "What was the second part again?" And then their comms guy went, "Oh, I've cut him off now, so we'll just move on." So I never got an answer, which was, does he think his playing style is made for this tournament? Because he's big, he's bustling, he's fast, and running at these tired defenders. I think that's where he's really come into his own in this tournament. And what's exciting to me, and it's obviously I'm not a TFC fan, is can you imagine him playing up front with Altidore? Is that twosome with Pozuelo a little bit further back or something? That's a deadly, deadly attack.
Yeah, if they could make it work tactically, yeah.
Yeah, because they are kind of similar, big bustling style. One other thing I do want to say is, probably back 2014, 15, I was a little bit critical of Greg Vanney. I wasn't sure that he was the right man to lead TFC, and we talked about it on the show. But just over the last few years, he has impressed me so much. And just listening to him talk in his press conferences, and I've been fortunate enough to get to ask him a couple of questions over the last few weeks, and he's a great guy. I think, could he someone, Stephen, that you could see possibly leading the US national team at some point?
Yeah, definitely. He's done terrifically well in his time there so far, and anytime you see a young, promising coach like that come through the pipeline, I just don't want to repeat of the Tata Martino situation, to be honest, or we've got a great coach in MLS who we let get away.
Right, let's move on to for me, the match of the tournament so far, which was KC Colorado, and just the craziness that went with that. For Colorado to get themselves back level, I actually let out a yes when they tied things up after everything that had happened. It was just a natural reaction. And then I felt so gutted for them when KC went up the other end and scored. But it meant Johnny Russell got a win, so I wasn't too unhappy. They haven't put Johnny Russell up to speak to me during this. I don't know why. But for me, that was the game of the tournament. Any disagreement on that? And like, what did you make of it? It was one of those matches we've seen Dave Ganter before, especially in Whitecaps games, ruin matches. For me, he ruined that match.
Or did he make it more exciting because of the comeback?
Oh well, there's that aspect.
I that was one of the few matches I've seen in this tournament. So I would, by default, I would say that it's probably the more exciting one. Obviously, I know Vancouver lost the game, but you got to say the San Jose Vancouver game was pretty exciting compared to the other ones. The way it went back and forth and everything like that, and the comeback. But the one that was shocking to me was the Galaxy LAFC game, 6-2. I didn't see that result. I thought LAFC would win, but 4 goals from Rossi. You guys are talking about Carlos Vela not showing up for the tournament. They can afford that when they have a player like Diego Rossi to take over for him. That was amazing.
Also, Bradley Wright Phillips has looked good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he looks like he kind of returned to form a little bit, especially the goal against the Galaxy. Just how he just so almost toyed with the defender before placing it. So perfectly in the bottom corner or in the far side of the net. I think the Colorado Kansas City game, Michael, had these different kinds of sparks. So like I think for the dramatic flair, Steve's probably right. I think the San Jose winner against Vancouver, it might be the best ending to a game or most exciting ending to a game. But yeah, there were different kinds of sparks in that the Kansas City Colorado game. The sending offs and the drama around that, and then like you said, a team feeling short coming back to equalize and feeling like they were getting something from the match was really exciting. And then their hopes were all kind of dashed at the end. And I'm opposite of you, because in that game I'm feeling for Kai Kamara, I'm feeling for Nico Mosqueda. I'm really excited for them, and then really sad for them. The sending off for the Colorado captain, it was just Ganter didn't like a word he said or something, or
yeah,
what
it
was
looks like he swore at him, and he's just like, right, you're off.
Yeah.
See, I agree with you in terms of Ganter. I don't think my impression of him, he's not a referee who does really great at the man management of the game, and I think he had kind of like, at that point in the game, he had already lost control of the game, it felt like. And it felt like that was his attempt to kind of restamp his authority on the game. And I think it just made Colorado players even more angry. But yeah, I don't think he's I don't think he's a quality ref.
Steven?
I just think in those games, in those 4-3 games, in the 3-2 KC Colorado game, that those are the moments where the sterility of the environment is most noticeable, where it's just this weird kind of Twilight Zone situation where there's nobody there to react to this strange stuff that's going on. And it's just, it makes for odd viewing, to be honest. I don't really know if I have any more to add to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, the LA Derby was a bit of a surprise as well, just because of the way, well, kind of in the way that the Galaxy defense just crumbled. But these are two teams that really, really need to relook at where they're allocating their money. It's fine having all this attacking talent. If you're not going to have a defense, it's like you're not going to win an MLS Cup. That's where Seattle's done so well over the years. They've had attacking strength, they've had exciting attackers, but they build their defense good as well.
LAFC, the goats there, the Walker Zimmerman thing, obviously we talked about in the past about selling him so close to the beginning of the season and not allowing yourself time to actually replace him. But then also in this tournament, they're missing someone else, or someone else is injured, right? Because another good friend, Canadian international DN Jakovic, is starting, and that's more than surprising. But I thought they
He
had
was
another
their
injury.
starter anyway, was he not? Though?
No.
A couple years ago.
No.
Couple years ago.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's not. But he doesn't have the pace to start anymore.
One thing I want to talk about looking forward though, like how we should mention this about the West Germany Austria thing. The one group to look at that is group which one is it? Group E, where Columbus and Atlanta are playing on the Tuesday. Atlanta gets a win, and you got the next day Cincinnati and the Red Bulls on 3 points each, where they could play to a draw and knock Atlanta out of the tournament. I just wanted to mention that one because I didn't see it in the rundown, but that's the Tuesday Wednesday game. Those two games are really keeping an eye on that one.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's nuts how they're doing this. Last thing in this little bit, I said on Wednesday, Columbus have impressed me. They still have. Any other teams stand out for any of you guys?
I think Portland and LAFC are two teams that look good as well.
Portland looks great.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people talk about Philadelphia as well. As I felt their opening goal.
They've been a bit of a surprise.
I keep picking them for MLS Cup final for the last 3-4 years. So maybe one time they'll actually do something. Orlando, obviously, they got the home, even though everybody's in the same bubble, still their home area. So I guess you got to put them up there too.
Talking actually about Portland, I thought this during the game. Like, I have really enjoyed listening to Gio Savarese on the touchline. And when Caleb Porter was with Portland, it was quite easy to hate Portland. They're rivals, but Caleb Porter, really easy to hate. Having Gio there, it's hard to dislike them because he's so likable.
They're gamers with him at the helm. I mean, man, they play hard. They're savvy. They're tactically very sharp. They can do a lot of different things. They can show you different looks. He experiments really well with different lineups and with different combinations and finds different things that work, different modes of play. And I think he's really one of the sharpest minds in Major League Soccer.
And I think that with Portland also, they probably got more motivation to stay in the tournament longer because of what's going on in Portland at this point. So they want to stay there as long as possible so they don't have to come home early.
I only found out on Friday that they'd had like 50 nights of rioting because it hasn't made the news or anything up here. And I was like, holy shit.
Well, they keep taking breaks for the Voodoo Donuts probably, right?
Oh, Blue Star Donuts is the place.
Oh, is it Blue Star?
Yeah. Voodoo's for the tourists. Blue Star's for the locals.
Oh, now you ruined it.
Damn it. So one last thing we're going to chat about tonight. This was a question that was posed on Twitter by Ryan Burns at AuthenticMe13. So we were chatting about a few things last night. And it surrounds the decision to not let the Toronto Blue Jays play any baseball games in Canada because of the border restrictions. So they're either going to have to bow out of the MLB season, which they're not going to do, or play all their games in the States, which Buffalo has offered to be their home. So if this doesn't change, obviously it's going to affect the 3 MLS teams. And for me right now, if things went to change, you've only got 3 options. You've got the fact that the 3 Canadian teams don't play another MLS game this year. The 3 Canadian teams play all their games in the States, which means they wouldn't even be able to come over the border because they'd have quarantine and stuff. So they'd be away from their family for months, potentially on end. Or the third option, there isn't games in the home market. Garber wants 20. What's that? Oh, actually, we've got Don Garber just coming on the show just now.
Oh, you're just waiting for that, weren't you?
There's Don Garber. Hi. What's that, Don?
I was surprised it took this long.
He's telling me what his plan is for the season. Yet they haven't made their mind up yet. I'm not going to say that. That's rude. No, I agree. That's fair about Caleb Porter.
Doesn't Michael look like the Scottish Mr. Dress-Up anyways?
Anyway, Don's just told me that those are the 3 options, and the third one being there could be more tournaments. What's your thoughts on that?
Maybe a fourth option. Maybe they join the CPL for this season.
He's had no talks with the CPL just now.
Surprised you didn't play a clip of him saying that. Michael, you better be careful because you're almost hugging him. So just be careful. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting if they're not allowing the Blue Jays to play games at home. You can't see them allowing MLS teams to play unless something changes, and I don't think it's going to change quick enough for that to happen. So, I mean, when you talk about just about Vancouver, think about what's happened to their squad playing games in the States right now. If they're saying the whole 20 home games are happening, let's say in Seattle, or like the USA, like the residency teams in Whatcom or whatever, Whatcom County. Like I don't see that going well or being received well by the Vancouver players.
At least they got good coffee.
Sure, but like
Freddie Montero
Freddie
can offer
Santo.
coffee. Yeah,
right. Okay, so maybe he would actually play then if it was in Washington State. But it doesn't feel like they're going to be able to get a meaningful season in.
I don't think they're going to be playing home games like the ones like baseball, for example. Use baseball. The players are socially distanced in baseball, where they're like far away. You can avoid that. Whereas like American football and I think soccer, I don't think those, because the players are so in close to each other. I think eventually you'll get a lot of testing like going on where more people will get COVID on the teams. Just look at FC Dallas and Nashville, for example. And I think those kind of sports will not work. Whereas sports like baseball, golf, NASCAR, for example, another one, those ones do work because people are apart from each other during the competition. I think that's the big difference there.
Stephen?
There's something ironic yet entirely self-consistent about Canada managing its outbreak of the coronavirus much more effectively than the United States, yet Canadian clubs being the ones who are going to be excluded from upcoming competition. So
yeah, I genuinely think there'll be another tournament. I don't think there will be games in the home market. I think there'll be another tournament, maybe September, maybe October time. Their version of the Apertura Clausura kind of thing. I don't know how that's going to work, but I could see that happening. But going back to Ryan Burns' tweet, after we were discussing that, he said, my mind is more now on not will they play and how will they play this year, but more what does this expose about how football has operated, the weaknesses in that, and how to potentially be less of a house of cards and more a properly sustainable business, which, like or love it, is the reality now. And you have to say, if this continues, if there's second waves, if there's third waves, if fans aren't getting into the stadiums, or if fans aren't getting into the stadiums in full numbers, maybe not MLS, but not necessarily not MLS, but across North America, across Europe, there's going to be a lot of football teams in a lot of trouble. And it is because their business model relies so much on money.
My simple answer to you, Michael, is that the unfortunate reality is that Major League Soccer owners possess far more greed than they do brains.
That kind of sums it up.
Oh, Don's left at that. He's disgusted by that comment. It's true. It's true. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. It's football nowadays. It's a business, like it or not. It's a business, and it's like it's very different over here to what I grew up with, where you've got community clubs. But even in the UK and Scotland, it's like a lot of the clubs are getting away from that. Like my team is Fife are getting more involved in their community. It's actually fantastic to see. They've penny pinched for years, but now their prudency has put them in a really good position. So they're not in the potential trouble that a lot of other clubs are. When you look over here, when I was doing conference calls at the start of all the coronavirus stuff, it was surprising to hear how many teams actually said that the bulk of their revenue comes from fans through the gate. And when you think about that, considering all the other money that's existing in expansion fees and stuff, that's very worrying if we don't know when fans are going to be back. Because USL started it, it's gone off, we think, without a hitch, but there's been some teams that aren't letting fans in at all. And there's been things with folk not wearing masks or not social distancing. But if this keeps up, the landscape of football in North America could be very, very different come 2022.
I think the teams that really rely on are the teams that own their own stadium. That's the ones that really rely on the ticket sales and the people coming in. Some teams, they're leasing out, and they're probably costing them more doing that as well. So it'll be interesting to see which teams get more affected. Is it the teams that spent more, or is it the teams that were very frugal? Are they the ones that would be okay after all this?
I mean, Stephen, from your knowledge, how much do the Sounders actually rely on gate receipts for their income? Because obviously they get fantastic crowds.
They're also always one of the top in terms of jersey sales and in terms of merchandising and all that as well. And they get huge sponsorships compared to what most MLS clubs are dealing with. But I think the point overall for the whole league, because there's so much revenue sharing going on anyways, right, is that MLS as a whole just fails consistently to look beyond the near-term payday, the short-term payday, to anything in the intermediate or long-term. And I think it probably comes from this hand-to-mouth mindset that the league grew up with in the 90s and early 2000s, but that just really doesn't make sense for where we're at financially now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, hopefully, we're not looking at the worst-case scenario. Things are going to get better. Just with how things look in the US just now, I can't see the Canadian border opening anytime soon, and I can't see restrictions lifted for teams. So that does put the Canadian teams in an awkward position. And you can't ask these teams to go and play a 20-game season down in the States. Even if you played 2 games a week, you're still getting them to go away from their family for maybe 3 months. That's just not acceptable. And if the players said no, I'd back that 100%.
Yeah, me too.
That's pretty much it then for the video part of tonight's show. Just a couple of last little messages from the chat. The Walker said prediction of 3-0 to the Whitecaps, and that the only team who appear true to form in this competition are actually the Whitecaps. Gordy says it's like watching the live streams of VMSL games, watching these games from Orlando. It is better quality, I'd have to say, in Orlando, but only just. But the Walkers, pleased to say, they know it's sweep from the Sooty and Sweep show. So just before we go into the part of the show where it's just me talking, let everyone know where they can find you online, starting with the luchador himself, Steve O'Pando.
Yeah, you can find me at Whitecaps Beat on Twitter.
Zach?
What's the background, Steve?
That's Eve Muirhead for Michael.
Oh,
Scottish
Scottish curler. Yeah, that's
right.
what all
Last episode.
That's what all Scottish girls look like.
Right. Okay.
It's obviously not, which is why I married a Canadian.
For me, you can find me on Twitter at ZacharyAM.
And Stephen?
You can check our podcast out at radio_Cascadia. Michael joins us frequently, which we're very, very grateful for. And I am grateful to have joined you guys tonight. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you, Stephen. And what about you? Where can we find you online? At the Soccer Dawn. At the Soccer Dawn on Twitter. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to have this out in the podcast, but there's also going to be another 2 parts in the podcast. In part 4, we're going to be talking sports science in this tournament. I got a chance to chat with Axel Schuster, Greg Vanny, Thierry Henry, Brian Schmetzer, and Peter Vermees about sports science in this tournament, how they've seen things change over the years, and a variety of things like that. Then in the last part of the show, we're going to look a little bit into like the permutations for the groups still to come in the MLS's back tournament. And we'll also have Wavelength and the final part of our episodic drama, Wanted for Wembley. But we'll bid adieu and I'll just warn all the guys, because I didn't warn the guys this when we stopped the last stream. It ends very abruptly, and I'm just going to end it and say bye. So thank you to everyone that has watched this online tonight, everyone that's joined us. It's 11:43 p.m. Thank you, Stephen, for flying in all the way from Seattle. Don't know how you got over the border, but well done. Zach, get back to the Hobbit Forest. Steve, I'm sure you can't breathe in that mask just now.
No, it can't. Hurry up.
No.
It's hot too.
For me, I can't wait to get these clothes off because this spotlight is absolutely killing me. But you know me, I love the spotlight. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back with another one of these soon. Bye everyone.